Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. So for you guys today, we are going to be doing a get ready with me style video. I'm not going to work, so it's not a get ready with me to go to work. I have already been to work and back today. Technically it's my day off from Friday, but I worked at Alta this morning. We're going to be talking about something that's been on my mind the last couple of days, and it's Roe versus Wade. So if you're not from the US, Roe versus Wade is basically one of the most important abortion cases that happened in the US history. It's where the government said that in like 1969 or something like that, that women had the right to choose whether or not to have an abortion. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, because it was recently overturned. So now, instead of it being like a federal law that says a woman can have an abortion, it's now up to states whether or not women can have abortions. And state laws are not all, like, not all states let women have abortions. Michigan, the state that I live in, has a nearly 100-year-old law. It was made in 1931. That says abortion is illegal. So unless the law is changed, abortion's not legal in Michigan at the moment. But with that being said, I realize that abortion and pro-life versus pro-choice is a very heated topic. It was before this happened. It's an even more heated topic now. So if you are against abortion, we can have a chat about it. I mean, like, we can, if you want to leave a comment, I'll respond. We can discuss this. This is basically my opinion on recent changes for the overturnment of Roe versus Wade. You know, we can be civil about it. Like, if you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I am sharing mine with you guys. This is probably like the only time you'll ever hear me get really political on my channel, and that's because I don't dive into politics. I don't, because it is such a personal thing. So that's the big disclaimer. The second disclaimer is my windows are all open because it's nice out and we're letting the breeze in, so if there's random movement, that's why. And then also, because it's only like 1 o'clock, you might hear cars. So that being said, let's get started. Okay, so one of the first things I think is important to talk about is my personal stance on abortion. I think I am pro-choice, not because I personally agree with abortion on like a fundamental level. I don't. It is my basic opinion that if you are willingly going out and doing the deed that could result in a child and not taking proper precautions to prevent said child, or, you know, merging of cells and DNA and everything, then you need to deal with the fallout of those actions. If I were, like, basically what I'm trying to say is, like, if I were to ever be pregnant, I probably wouldn't have an abortion. I'm saying probably because I don't know. I've never been pregnant. I'm not planning on being pregnant at all. So I'm not really sure. Why I agree with pro-choice is because I also don't think that I have the right to tell somebody else what they can and cannot do with their bodies. And as with any case, there are extenuating circumstances. For me, that is, you know, if a woman is raped, if the merging of cells and DNA is a result of incest, or if, in the most drastic cases, if you find out, you know, 5 months along or whatever, that the child you wanted to have will die as soon as it's born, I am okay with like somebody having an abortion in those cases. Like, those would be the instances in which I could see myself also getting an abortion. But with that being said, like I said, I also don't think that I, as a human, have the ability or the right to tell somebody else you can't have an abortion. Now, why this matters with Roe versus Wade is because the Supreme Court overturned that. And the reasons that they overturned it are what is irritating me to no end, because they said it is against religion and it is immoral to have an abortion. The immoral part, I think it depends on the circumstance. Again, like, I think it depends on the circumstance if it's immoral or not. But to say it's against religious views, the First Amendment says that there needs to be separation of church and state, meaning religious views are not supposed to be taken into consideration when it comes to making a law. And that's what abortion is. It is a law. So the fact that they even overturned Roe versus Wade in general is ridiculous to me. Like, they had no reason to overturn it. If we're looking at it aside from that, for things other than that, another reason I'm not happy with the turn of events is the fact that basically, like, my biggest view is if it is against someone's religion to have an abortion, they themselves do not have an abortion. But because it is against somebody else's religion or your religion, does not mean that because of your religion, you have the right to tell me or somebody else what I can and cannot do with my body. As for moral purposes, it's not you, and not like you, but like theoretical you, that would have to deal with the fallout of having an abortion. That's me and my significant other, if I have one. It's not you. It's me. You know, so I just think that the whole overturnment of Roe versus Wade was ridiculous. I also think the fact that the Supreme Court is currently made out of mostly men. There are only 2 women on, I think there's only 2 women on the Supreme Court right now. The rest of them are all men. Is, like, I've said this before and I will say it again. Men have no understanding of what it is like for a woman to give birth or to try and control those types of things, okay? They are not the ones that have to go through the emotional upheaval with birth. They're not the ones whose bodies are going to change, whose mental health is as deeply affected as a woman's. It's not. They don't get postpartum depression. They don't, have their waistlines expand, their hips expand, have their entire body and image change. They're also not the ones who, once they have a child, the world's viewpoint of them will change. It's not them. That's a woman thing. Women have to deal with that on a regular basis. And I'm not a man hater. So before anybody comes up with that, I'm not a man hater. I'm not gonna tell a guy he has to go out and get a vasectomy. So I don't think guys in general need to know about what I do or don't do with my body. I don't think men should have that. The other problem with the overturnment of Roe versus Wade is the fact that the U.S. government is not going to step up and make birth control any cheaper than what it is. Okay, they're not going to make it more readily accessible. They're not going to teach about it more. They're not doing anything to help with that. They are also not going to pay for all the unwanted children that are going to be a result of this. They're not going to pay the health care bills that result of a woman who gave birth to a child who died immediately after the cord was cut because they didn't have a brain, or their heart stopped beating in the womb and they had to deliver because of that. The fact that they're also going to make miscarriages illegal, like you now will face jail time if you have a miscarriage, or possible jail time because of a miscarriage. Miscarriages happen at any stage. They can happen at any stage. If you trip and you fall, you could have a miscarriage. If you are in an accident, you could have a miscarriage. Miscarriages happen all the time, but that is now facing possible jail time. That's ridiculous to me. They're not gonna pay, the US government is not going to pay to have like free mental health care for these women that are gonna be going through this. They're not gonna pay for the C-sections that are gonna happen, because if you have a child that doesn't have a brain, you have to have a C-section to remove the fetus, because there's not enough. You have to finish carrying that child to term now, is essentially what it is. You find out your child, your wanted child has a brain that has stopped developing. You have to finish carrying that child all the way through the 9 months until you go into labor. And then you can't even give a vaginal birth. You have to have major surgery because there's not enough stuff in between, like in the skull, to support the skull. So the skull does this and you can't push it out. We as a country are not set up for something like this. We're not. There are not enough rules in place. There are not enough regulations in place for something like this to have happened. I'm not saying that abortion should be like the ultimate birth control. I'm not. I think it needs to be more regulated. I think that people shouldn't be able to use abortion as like the ultimate get out of jail free card for having like a one night stand and then having an oops baby or something. I don't think that is right. But I also don't think it is right to essentially sentence people to a life that they don't want. And, they're talking about saving lives. Once those kids are born, nobody takes care of them. You are either sentencing them, the US government is essentially sentencing those children to a life of hatred and bemoanment by their parents because they were unwanted and possible physical and mental abuse through their parents, or they're being sent to foster care. Our foster care system already has over 100,000 children in foster care that do not have homes. They're not being adopted. So what is the point in this? You're just sentencing more people to be even more miserable. But if it, the only way anymore that anybody's going to be able to get an abortion is if they have the money to fly to a different state or travel to a different state that does do abortion. That's how this is going to be. If you want to make it so it's harder for people to get an abortion, make it so they have to fill out a form for something. Like, make it so every single hospital has a person on hand to help decide whether or not the person having an abortion is one, mentally ready for that, two, physically ready for that. You know, make it so that it's a thing that has to be thought about, but don't take the option away. I know in Michigan, like I said, it's illegal at the moment, or it's not necessarily illegal, but it will be soon. There are already so many hospitals in Michigan that don't do abortions because they're through religious views. Like the Mercy doesn't do abortions because it's like the Three Sisters of Mercy. It's like a Catholicism thing or whatever. And then, I can't remember, but one of the only hospitals that was doing abortions has said that unless the mother's life is at risk, they're no longer going to perform abortions. And it's just mind-boggling that 50 years, we took 50 plus years back for women's rights this past weekend. I'm very glad that in Michigan we have a female governor who is going to do her damnedest to try and help make it so that we can have freedom over our bodies and have that right. Because it's not even just about like being able to have an abortion. What does this mean if we're going 50 years backwards on women's rights? What's gonna happen after that? Is same-sex marriage not gonna be allowed anymore? Is interracial marriage not gonna be allowed anymore? You know, there are other reasons as to why this decision was a bad one. You know, no matter how you look at it, it's a bad thing. And people can say, you know, oh, I'll adopt a child, you know, you don't have to, it's not the child's, and stuff like that. But there are other political ramifications for getting rid of abortion, having abortion no longer be a thing. There are other political ramifications of this, and it's not being fully utilized yet. But you know, what's next for women? Are we gonna have our right to vote taken away from us too? Because that took forever to go through. I mean, and you can say it doesn't affect you or whatever, but ultimately it does. And this is getting worldwide news. This is getting international news coverage. One of my friends lives in Ireland, and they're watching to see what's gonna happen in the US. It's ridiculous. Like, you know, I don't know. All I can do is, if you have the power to fight this, do so, because there are other things anymore. You know, this is a bad thing that happened. It was a step backwards. It's not a step in the right direction. Everybody can be like, oh, a lot of people can be like, oh, thank God that law is done. You know, if you are like that, that means you're probably against abortion, right? But was having the ability to have an abortion really affecting you anyway? You don't have to have an abortion. It's not mandatory. There is no law that states once you're knocked up, you have to go have an abortion. There's not. It was an option for those who were either not ready, or the child was a result of sexual assault and incest and all these other types of things. Like, there's a reason it existed, you know. But now it doesn't matter because they overturned it. It's just very disheartening to realize that I live in a country that is okay with going backwards. It's not okay. We're supposed to be making progress. We're supposed to be going forward if we're getting rid of human rights, basic human rights. People can say that having an abortion is not a basic human right. Maybe the abortion itself, but the right to have privacy, to do what I want with my own body, the option to do what I want with my own body, or what any woman wants to do with her own body, that is a basic human right. And it just got taken away from us. Health coverage is not going to increase to cover additional families. You know, there are already so many people in the US who need food stamps and basic government care that don't get it. And now they're just going to add to it because they're not willing to realize that change needs to happen. You know, it's just, it baffles me that this could happen in the US. So next, what's going to happen is we're going to lose our right to vote. We're going to lose our rights to own homes and properties. We're going to go backwards. We're going to go back to the 14th, 15th, 12th century. I mean, we're going to go back hundreds of years at this rate. And the thing of it is women make up over 51% of the population in the US. But our voices matter the least? I don't think so. You know, if you think that this doesn't affect you, think long term then. You have sisters, you have daughters, you have nieces, nephews, sisters, daughters, nieces. This affects everybody because it's going backwards. If you think it doesn't affect you, you're mistaken. I hate to tell you, you are very sadly mistaken right now. And it's gonna bite you in the ass one day, you know? So I hope that something happens. I hope that enough people are willing to fight this, that maybe the overturnment can be overturned, because this is ridiculous. We should not, in 2022, we should not have to worry about getting our rights taken as women. We should be fighting to get more equality. You know, I'm not saying that it's not gonna take a while. It's going to take a while, but we shouldn't be going backwards as a society. We should be moving forwards, and the fact that we're going backwards, it baffles me. I don't understand. I'm not sure I want to understand at this rate why we're doing this, you know. And if you really want to put it in a way that people can understand, if you're a woman or you have a daughter or your wife is molested or something, do you really want to have your child, you know, your daughter, your niece, whoever, raise that? Or do you want them to have to be stuck with making, I don't want to say making that decision, but do you really not want there to be an option for them? I can't understand wanting to do that to somebody. I wouldn't wish that fate on my worst enemy, let alone somebody I actually care about. I can't. I don't get it. So yeah, I mean, those are my opinions on it. I don't understand why we went backwards. I don't get it. I really, really don't. So, you know, we need to be fighting this. We need to be doing something to make this situation better, or better yet, reverse it, because it's ridiculous. You know, I don't get it. And ultimately, it's going to come down to money. I mean, that's what this entire country is all about, if I'm being really honest with myself, because the abortion change isn't going to affect the people who can afford. Well, it's going to affect them, but it's not going to affect them as badly as those who cannot afford to go to another state to do that. You know, it's just not. And it's heartbreaking to me to know that we are losing our rights as we go. It's absolutely heartbreaking and infuriating to know that any kids I may or may not have at this rate are not going to have control of their bodies. They're not going to have physical autonomy. And that's a shame. That's a really big crying shame. So maybe this video will only get 10 views. Maybe it'll get 100, but you know, speak with your voices, you guys. I mean, we can do this if we try. And I'm not saying that to be like, hoo rah rah, women are the best and everything, but you know, if think of it from somebody else's view. If you were in a situation where you had to make that decision, hopefully you never are. I don't want anybody to ever have to be in that situation, but if you are ever in a situation where abortion is an option, would you wish that on anybody else? I mean, would you wish not being able to choose what you do with yourself or on anybody else? Do you want that to be you? I don't get it. I don't understand how. And the part that really kills me is the fact that on the Supreme Court, one of the justices that decided to overturn it was a woman. I'm not saying that you have to agree with abortion. You don't. I don't care if you agree with abortion, but the fact that a woman voted to make it so women do not have autonomy over their own bodies is ridiculous. If they're gonna take away the right to have physical autonomy over our bodies, then they need to make it so vasectomies are a thing as well. You know, if you're gonna take away our rights to say no to bearing a child, then men, like, and this is gonna make me sound like an asshole, and I'm not trying to be, but then vasectomies need to become a thing. That's what I'm saying at this point. And let's look at it, I guess, one final way. This isn't going to stop people from getting abortions. What it's going to do is make it so women don't have them safely. So I think we're going to see a definite increase in deaths from abortions that were performed outside of a hospital. I think we're going to see an increase in sick people who were trying to perform an abortion outside of their house. Abortion isn't just about, like, it's about healthcare and safety too. By removing that, you've said two things. The government has said two things. They've said, we do not value you as a person, so we're going to take away your decision to have control over your own body. What they've also said is the fact that we don't care if you die. That is essentially what they said. We don't care if you live or die, because we haven't thought far enough ahead into the future to realize that this is going to lead to... Can I help you?
I eat this.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is going to lead to people doing things unsafely. Rather than wanting you to be safe in a hospital, or as safe as you can be in a hospital, we want you to take dangerous risks outside of a hospital. Even though we pretend we value you, even though we say...
They basically want you to kill yourself in a hospital.
They basically, by taking away abortion rights,
That's so stupid.
It is. By taking away the abortion rights, they basically said, we do not care enough about you to put any more thought.
Basically, a man can go, like, do whatever he wants to you. You have a baby and that man leaves. He's going to be like, oh yeah, I can do all these things I want to her, and she has to have the baby, but he won't be having when he has to pay child support. Because he left, because he didn't want a baby. But he has it now. So,
Well, that's kind of something different, but yes, it ties into it.
nothing. Never mind. Don't talk to me like that either.
Good Lord. You two be quiet. But yeah, it's not even just about the babies anymore. It's about everybody at this point. So I really hope they overturn it. I really, really do. I hope that every single state is lucky enough to have people in office who give enough shits about the female population to realize that this is wrong, that taking away somebody's bodily autonomy is not right. It will never be right. I hope every state gets somebody who realizes that. I really, really do. Alright, you guys, but that is it for today's topic. Like I said, normally I don't make these types of videos. I probably won't make another one like this after this. So if you want to share your opinions, go ahead, leave it down in the comments. Just make sure we keep it respectful and kind, because there's enough stupidity and bad stuff in the world. We don't need to bring it to my channel. YouTube is kind of like my escape from that. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion, or will enjoy having a discussion. I hope that you guys can see it from my point of view, how I view it, and I look forward to seeing how you guys view it down in the comments. So yeah, with that being said, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.